Hey everyone, this is Scott from SuperRadDad.com, and I am trying something new for 2012. I play a lot of games, and I have the desire to review a lot of games. But the only problem is I don't have a lot of time to sit down and actually write reviews for the games that I play. And because I'm juggling two toddlers at home and, thankfully a stable job, I don't have time to record video reviews all the time for them at home. I don't know how Tom Bassel does it. I'm impressed by the fact that he does do it. But what I'm going to try for 2012 is a little thing that I like to call reviews on the road. So, since I have some time in the car here and there, I figured why not review some games? And at least that way I get to talk about the games that I've played and what I like and what I don't like. First game for 2012 on Reviews on the Road is the Walking Dead board game, which is inspired by the Robert Kirkman comic book. Now, this is not to be confused with the AMC's The Walking Dead, the board game, which was also released at the same time, but based off of AMC's take on the Walking Dead comic book. Now, it should be said, I love The Walking Dead. I'm a big fan of zombies in general, granted, even though I think that the entire genre is pretty much saturated in the mainstream, but I've always been a fan of zombies, and I love The Walking Dead. I love the comic book, and I cannot tell you how much I loved the first half of the second season this year of the TV show. That being said, I did not like The Walking Dead, the board game. It felt very sluggish to me. It felt very slow. It felt like Z-Man Games needed to have a zombie board game. There was a ripe license for the picking that has great artwork because of Charlie Adler's work in the comic book, and so Z-Man picked it up and put out Z-Man's zombie game. Unfortunately, I don't think it works. Certainly not in comparison to the other zombie games out there, the pinnacle of which I think is Last Night on Earth. Now, granted, tonally, Last Night on Earth and Walking Dead could not be more different, but mechanically, I think Last Night on Earth is a more enjoyable game than Walking Dead. Walking Dead is for 1 to 6 players. It is effectively a cooperative / competitive game, which 6 survivors from the show, from the comic, are scouting Atlanta and the surrounding areas for resources and attempting to scout out 3 specific locations. And the first player to scout out those 3 specific locations on the board is the winner. I guess alternatively, you can also win by not being eaten by zombies and being the last survivor on the board. Along with the 6 main characters, which are from the comics, and they are Rick and Shane, Tyrese, Dale, Glenn, and Andrea, there are a host of supporting survivors which can be found throughout the game during the encounter phase of the game, which will add to your dice pool and give you bonuses for the actions that you can take during your turn. First of all, let's talk about the art and the components. They're nice. Again, I think it's hampered by the fact that The Walking Dead, the comic book, is all done in black and white, and so all the components are therefore also done in black and white. Now, the artwork is beautiful because the artwork in the comic book is beautiful, but it's in black and white, so it's a pretty bland-looking board and pretty bland-looking bits. But then again, I guess tonally it works because, zombies are pretty bland. Or I should say, the wasteland of fallen humanity is pretty desolate, and so I guess the art reflects that. There are a lot of chits and a lot of pieces in the game, and look, the components are just nothing to write home about as far as I'm concerned. The art is nice, but I would have personally liked to see a little bit more color for what you get in the game. The game is about collecting resources. found on the game board, avoiding zombie encounters if you can, scouting out these locations, and at the end of each turn, if you are on a space that has resources, or at one of your locations, then you have to flip over an encounter card. The encounter cards should be interesting. Half of them, I would say, have an interesting idea behind them. The other half are not. So we'll start with what I don't find interesting about the encounter cards, and that's the fight zombie cards. Now, you fight a lot of zombies in this game because there are zombies on the board that if you cross their path, you have to fight them. So it's a little tedious or redundant to have to also, in your encounters, flip over a card to find out how many zombies you have to fight, and then therefore roll dice to find out how many zombies you've actually killed. If you fail those encounters, you don't take any damage, but you may not get resources, or another negative event may happen. Because you're fighting so many zombies, the event of fighting the zombies just doesn't feel like that enjoyable of an experience. Now, the other half of the encounter cards are difficult choices cards. And this, I think, fits really thematically with the comic book and the show itself, because The Walking Dead is all about making tough decisions, whether or not you are going to be self-sacrificing or self-interested, and the consequences between both of those choices. So there are encounter cards where you will be asked to pick another player and give them a situation, and that player will either decide to be self-sacrificing or self-interested, and depending on their choice, you either succeed or fail in that encounter. Interesting in the way it's handled. I don't think it is as effective or important as, say, a game like Battlestar Galactica, where the decisions of another really affect the outcome of the many. But I credit the encounter cards for doing something a little different. The problem, of course, is that only half the cards do that. The other half are basically roll and see whether or not you get enough dice in order to pass the encounter. So mechanically, it's just not that fulfilling for me. Granted, it's probably a good. The mechanics are not so dense that a new gamer couldn't pick them up. In fact, I think new gamers can pick up this game very quickly and very easily. But I don't think new gamers are going to be very interested in what happens, because, unfortunately, one of the biggest downsides of the game is that you just spend a lot of time flipping encounter cards and waiting until you either successfully roll to pass the encounter, or somebody makes the proper choice in order to pass the encounter. And inherent in that is a lot of luck. And there's not really a lot that you can do to add or enhance the possibility of you passing encounters. A lot of it is luck-based, and so that means that in a game with 6 players, you're flipping over cards, and if you fail the encounter, then you're waiting until your turn to flip over another card to see if you pass the encounter by pure luck. And it just isn't particularly rewarding. There's no real important or exciting choices to be made in this game. Now, one of the problems that I have with this game is, on the box, it says that a game is 30 to 60 minutes. And so a game that I don't find very particularly challenging and that has fairly simplistic mechanics to be played in 30 or 60 minutes with 6 players, I can forgive a lot. That's not that bad of a deal. I mean, sure, there are probably other games that I'd rather be playing, but I can enjoy myself for 30 or 60 minutes playing a game that I'm not totally jazzed up about. The problem with the Walking Dead board game is I don't know who can play this game in 30 or 60 minutes. We played 6 players, and it took 2.5 hours to play the game, and I have to admit, we didn't even finish it after those 2.5 hours. It got so late into the night, all of us were getting tired, we all had to wake up for work the next morning, and so we just decided to give the game to the person who was the farthest ahead. And the thought of going through and slogging through another 2+ hour game, or even hour and a half plus game at this, just is not enticing or exciting to me, given the lack of challenge, the lack of unique choices, or the lack of fun and compelling gameplay that this game offers. I would say even more egregious than that, though, is the terrible, terrible rule book that comes along with this game. If you can slog through all of the double and triple negatives that are rampant in the encounter cards or in the rule book, more power to you. The 6 of us that played, I like to think, are fairly intelligent and well-read and are experienced gamers, and we had the most difficult time trying to figure out what rules applied when, and also trying to navigate through the very, very noticeable gaps in rules, the notable times that we said that we just had to basically go with majority rule and how to interpret certain situations that were just not addressed in the rule book. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, there is a very extensive FAQ on the board game website, which address a lot of the questions that we had, but also really illustrate just how poorly worded and the lack of content that is in this rule book to help players navigate what really shouldn't be that challenging or that difficult of a game to understand the rules for. So, be well-minded that if you're going to play this game for the first time, you need to go on the board game website and download that FAQ in order to have a full understanding of how the rules work and the erratas therein. So overall, the Walking Dead board game by Z-Man Games was not really an experience that I really want to go back to. I probably will, just to confirm my feelings on this, but I really can't see myself playing much past 2 times on this game. Take that as you will. If you think that I should play a game 10 times, 15 times before making an assessment of how I felt when I played the game and what I thought about the rules, take that into consideration and account when you're going to purchase the Walking Dead board game. But for me, it takes me only one game to really figure out whether or not I like the way I felt while playing the game. It takes me really only one game to figure out whether or not I think the mechanics of the game are interesting, and it doesn't take me much more than 1, 2, or 3 games to determine whether or not I ever want to play this game again. And given my experience the first time with this game, I'm willing to give it another shot, but I'm not really expecting my opinion to change very much. So, there you go. Scott's reviews on the road for 2012, the Walking Dead board game. Walk on. Thanks for listening, and hopefully there will be more of these very soon.